Some homes don't just welcome you back, they quietly test who you've become. It was a Sunday morning, the kind where the neighborhood is so still you can hear your own heartbeat. I'd been away for 6 months, college, independence, the whole coming-of-age package. And now I was standing at my parents', front door, key in hand, ready to surprise them. I turned the doorknob expecting comfort, familiarity, maybe some home-cooked breakfast. I didn't expect transformation. I thought I was coming home to surprise my parents. I didn't know I was about to inherit something I never knew was mine. The living room smelled like Sunday, coffee, wood polish, and that specific warmth only a childhood home can hold. Dad was there, sitting in his usual spot, reading the paper like it was still 1985. The moment he saw me, his face lit up in a way that made the entire 6-month absence dissolve in seconds. We hugged. We laughed. He asked me about school, about life, about everything and nothing all at once. His voice carried that familiar pride, the kind fathers have when they see their sons stepping into the world and surviving it. He looked relaxed, confident, happy. And then I noticed it, the chair. That luxurious chair in the corner of the living room, the one I'd always loved as a kid. Deep cushions, rich fabric, positioned perfectly by the window where afternoon light pooled like liquid gold. I used to think it was just furniture, but standing there that morning I realized it was more than that. It was luxury, memory, longing. "Where's Mom?" I asked. Dad gestured upstairs with a knowing smile, the kind that suggested she was doing something characteristically her. I climbed the stairs, each step creaking in that familiar way, and followed the sound of rustling fabric. I found her in the guest bedroom, surrounded by color and memory. Vintage outfits were spread across the bed. Dresses from different decades, each one telling a story I'd never heard. Silks and satins, bold prints, and delicate lace, all laid out like chapters of a life I was only beginning to understand. When she saw me, her face didn't explode with surprise. Instead, it softened, joy that runs deeper than shock, quieter than excitement. "Jackson," she said simply, and pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. She explained she was organizing pieces she hadn't worn in years. Sorting through the past, she called it. Deciding what to keep, what to pass on, what to remember. But as I looked at those clothes, the textures, the craftsmanship, the stories sewn into every seam, I realized something. These weren't just clothes. They were memory, heritage. Beauty is inheritance, passed down through fabric and thread. That's when I saw it. Draped over the chair by the window, a snow-white mink coat. It was stunning. Pristine, the kind of piece that doesn't just exist, it commands. I walked over without thinking, my hand reaching out before my brain could catch up. The fur was impossibly soft, like touching a cloud that somehow had weight and warmth. On impulse, pure, unexplainable impulse, I slipped it on. It fit perfectly. I turned to face the mirror, and something strange happened. There was no laughter in my chest, no embarrassment, no internal voice telling me to take it off, just pause, just recognition. Mom watched me from across the room, and when our eyes met in the mirror, she didn't look surprised. She looked knowing. "You look very good in that," she said quietly. Then she added something that made my heart skip. "Your father wore that once, years ago, before you were born." He looked stunning. I blinked. Processed. Tried to picture my father, strong, masculine, confident, in this coat. And somehow, I could. Something inside me shifted. Not dramatically, not earth-shatteringly, just quietly, like a door I didn't know was locked suddenly clicking open. That's when Dad walked in. He paused in the doorway, taking in the scene, me in the white mink, Mom smiling beside me, the mirror reflecting something unexpected. For a second, I thought he might be uncomfortable. Instead, he grinned. "Oh, you think you look good in that?" he said, voice full of playful challenge. "You should have seen me back in the day. I was stunning." Mom laughed, a real laugh, full of memory and affection. Dad walked over to the bed and picked up another coat. Cream-colored mink, shorter cut, equally luxurious. He put it on with theatrical flair, striking a pose that was half serious, half ridiculous. "See," he said, "still got it." The room filled with warmth. Not heat, but the kind of warmth that comes from love, nostalgia, and family seeing each other clearly. There we stood, father and son, 2 coats, 2 generations, 2 versions of beauty. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like we were different. I felt like we were the same. The sound of the front door slamming downstairs made us all turn. "I'm home," a voice called up. My sister Emma, arriving with perfect, chaotic timing. She bounded up the stairs and burst into the room, stopping short when she saw us. Dad in cream mink. me in white, Mom standing between us like a referee at a very unusual fashion show. Emma's eyes went wide, then sparkled with mischief. "Are you two competing or something?" Mom smiled, that subtle smile that meant she was about to make things interesting. "We're deciding who looks better," she said simply. Emma gasped dramatically, then her face lit up with pure sibling energy. Wait, what does the winner get?" Dad and I exchanged glances. Then, simultaneously, we both looked at the living room beyond the door. At the chair. "The luxurious chair," I said. "Tonight at dinner." Emma clapped her hands together. "Oh, this is happening. This is absolutely happening." And just like that, a simple Sunday morning became something else entirely. The Game of Thrones was official. Emma planted her hands on her hips, surveying the situation like a general assessing troop. "Okay," she declared. "I'm Team Dad." She walked over and linked arms with him, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. Dad laughed, clearly delighted. Mom turned to me, and for a moment something passed between us. Something unspoken, but understood. "Then I suppose," she said softly, "I'm on Jackson's side." The room divided, not with tension, but with possibility. Emma immediately started strategizing with Dad. Makeup, styling, accessories. Their laughter echoed through the house as they disappeared into my parents' bedroom. Mom and I stayed in the guest room, surrounded by decades of her wardrobe. She moved through the clothes with quiet confidence, pulling pieces, considering combinations, laying options across the bed like an artist selecting colors. "We'll take our time," she said, not looking at me. "This isn't about speed, it's about finding what feels right." She opened drawers I'd never seen, pulled out jewelry boxes from the back of the closet, selected shoes that looked like they belonged in a museum. Downstairs, Dad and Emma's voices rose in playful argument and laughter. Up here, Mom and I moved in near silence. Her hands didn't hesitate, didn't question. She dressed me like this was always part of the plan. The dress she chose was burgundy silk, vintage, probably from the 70s, with clean lines and an elegance that felt timeless. She helped me into it without ceremony, adjusting the fit, smoothing the fabric. Then came the jewelry, a delicate necklace that caught the light. Earrings that felt surprisingly natural once they were on. Shoes next, heels that weren't too high but changed everything about how I stood, how I held myself. She worked methodically, patiently. At one point, she stepped back to assess, then moved forward again to adjust a sleeve. "How does it feel?" she asked. I searched for words. Strange, familiar, wrong, right, terrifying, natural. "Different," I finally said. She smiled. "Different good or different bad?" I paused, really checking in with myself. "Different." "True," I whispered. Something in her expression softened even further, if that was possible. She guided me to the full-length mirror in the corner of the room. "Look," she said simply. I did, and I stopped breathing. The person looking back at me wasn't a costume, wasn't a performance. It was me. But also not me. Or maybe it was me in a way I'd never allowed myself to see before. My posture had changed without me realizing it. Straightened. Softened. My shoulders relaxed in a way they never did in my regular clothes. My breathing slowed. Deepened. Something inside me aligned. Like tumblers in a lock falling into place. Opening something I didn't know was sealed. I turned slightly, watching how the fabric moved. How the light caught different angles. How the person in the mirror responded to movement with grace I didn't know I possessed. This didn't feel like pretending. It felt like remembering. Downstairs, Emma's voice rang out. "We're ready! Come down when you are!" Mom touched my shoulder gently. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to." I met her eyes in the mirror. "I want to," I said. And I meant it. The living room felt different when we came down. Charged. Full of anticipation that wasn't about judgment, but about revelation. Dad and Emma were already there. Dad had gone all out. Full makeup, styled hair, a gorgeous emerald dress that actually looked amazing on him. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement. When Dad saw me, he paused. Really looked. Then his face broke into the widest smile I'd ever seen. "Holy shit, Jackson," Emma breathed. "You look incredible." There was no mockery in her voice, no teasing, just genuine amazement. Dad walked over slowly, still smiling, and for a moment I worried about what he might say. He stopped in front of me, looked me up and down, then met my eyes. "You're beautiful, son," he said quietly. I missed you. Then he pulled me into a hug, careful not to wrinkle either of our dresses, and I felt something inside me break open, not break apart. Break open. Like a seed cracking to let something grow. We stood there for a moment. This strange, beautiful family tableau. Dad in emerald, me in burgundy, Emma beaming, Mom watching with quiet satisfaction. So, Emma said eventually, who wins? I looked at Dad. He looked at me. Then, simultaneously, we both started laughing. I think, I said, voice full of something I couldn't name, I already won. Dad nodded. Yeah, me too. Emma threw her hands up. You can't both win. That defeats the whole purpose. But Mom shook her head. They can both sit at the table. But Jackson's been away for 6 months. She looked at me. Tonight, the chair is yours. Dinner was strange and wonderful. Dad stayed in his emerald dress, touch-up on his makeup still intact. I remained in my burgundy silk. Emma kept glancing between us with this expression of absolute delight, like she discovered a secret about our family she'd always suspected but never confirmed, and taking photos, with permission, capturing this moment we all knew was somehow significant. And I sat in that luxurious chair, feeling the way it held me, the way the fabric of my dress pooled around me, the way the window light made everything feel golden and possible. Not as a challenge, not as rebellion, but as belonging. That day, I got to sit on the luxury chair, but more importantly, I got to reunite with my beautiful family. A family where femininity isn't a crime, where exploration isn't mockery, where love means seeing each other clearly and loving what you see. They had my back. Always had. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and vintage fabric and unconditional acceptance, I realized something profound. The inheritance my mother gave me that day wasn't just clothing. It wasn't just permission. It was recognition. Recognition that beauty isn't gendered, that expression isn't limited, that coming home sometimes means discovering parts of yourself you left behind or never knew existed. Sometimes home doesn't change you. Sometimes it reminds you who you were always allowed to be. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever found safety, love, or self-discovery within family, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your thoughts. Share your story. This is a space where your experience matters. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and never be ashamed of the beauty you inherit. The end.
The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.